Next on the list we have God. Link's
Tingles 3?
crossbow training.
Link's
Alright.
crossbow training. Here we go.
November 2007 on the Wii. Go ahead, Eric.
So I'm not gonna say like I played this game a lot, but I played like a couple levels, and I
Yeah.
was like, okay, this is like a fun little gimmick for the Wii Zapper.
Damn
That's
it.
about it. I'm pretty sure it was like literally like a packing game for the Wii Zapper, and that's about it.
Ugh. Yeah. I don't know what else to say about this game.
This was my game of the year for 2007.
Great.
It beat out Pokemon Diamond and Pearl. It beat
You're
out
crazy.
Call of Duty. What was before
No.
World at War? It beat COD 4.
No
Yeah.
way. Not actually. uh, Link almost had a sword from the start in the original Legend of Zelda. Says it starts with him obtaining a cheap wooden sword from an old man in a cave. But that's not the way the game was originally designed. Early versions had Link starting the game with his sword already in his inventory. When game testers reported confusion over what to do in the game, Miyamoto responded, interestingly enough, by taking away their sword. The move was designed to get players thinking about how to proceed in this new type of non-linear game, and to encourage communication between players and about the game's many secrets. Interestingly, back then, to have that design philosophy that you kind of see with Breath of the Wild in the forefront. So next on the, so I'll just say I never played Link's Crossbow Training, not once. Interestingly enough, I watched it from afar, being like, huh, that's kind of cool, I guess. I remember coming out, or remember seeing my friend have it, and just not even being interested in playing it, even though it was like Zelda related, because I just knew what it was at that point. Next on the list, god damn it. I don't know when we're gonna end with the Tingle games, but Ripened Tingle's Balloon Trip of Love, August 2009. Look, we're gonna skip over. The Legend of Zelda Spirit Tracks was the next one for the Nintendo DS, December 2009. Spirit Tracks. And you know, the funny thing is the DS line had more Zeldas than I realize. That's what I'm taking away from these. Spirit Tracks, I will say, for me, was hand in hand with like Phantom Hourglass. I think I played them around the same time.
Yeah.
So it's a similar history. I remember, and I don't think, because you could walk around with I think you could walk around with the stylus still on Spirit Tracks. And I remember having a fun time with like the actual train system itself was interesting. The dungeon design I don't remember liking in that one, if I'm right, but I think that's where that one lacked for me. What's your history with that, Eric?
So Spirit Tracks is actually one I never gotten around to, and actually looking at the timeline over here, like I didn't realize Spirit Tracks released so soon after uh Phantom Hourglass. Like I didn't
Yeah.
realize it was like been just 2 years. Like looking back on it, it felt like it came out like a couple years afterwards. Like I didn't realize it was that soon. Um, so yeah, never really got around to Spirit Tracks. I know people like it over Phantom Hourglass, and I've like seen bits and pieces of like Spirit Tracks, but never really like fully experienced it.
Mm. Gaff, you don't have anything to touch on this one? Okay. It wasn't
Move on.
originally called Legend of Zelda. In the US, the original NES game is simply known as The Legend of Zelda. In Japan, the game's full title is The Legend of Zelda: The Hyrule Fantasy. So, I guess they had to simplify it for some reason, which we'll get into. Ocarina of Time 3D. So, the 3DS, June 2011, this is the definitive way to play Ocarina of Time.
Yep. Shout out. Shout out to Super Skarmory.
Yeah, absolutely. That's funny. That's funny that was your first interaction with Zelda, man, or with that Zelda, I should say. It says, I'll just move to the next one because that's like a short one. We already kind of touched on it. Skyward Sword, 2011 November for the Wii. Now, this one got a lot of 10 out of 10s for some places, and for other places it was not that. Eric, go ahead. Gaff.
I would see it on like the Best Buy, like behind the glass case, and it had the game of the year like branding,
Mm,
right? And I never bought it, but to me, this must have been like the best game in the entire world. And
mm.
then I got on the internet many years later and realized just the vitriol that everyone has for this game, and I was very, very confused.
There, yeah, I'll get into it in a second. But Eric, what's your thoughts and history with that one?
So Skyward Sword definitely like was one of like as a kid like one of my most hyped like Zelda games ever because like it's really like the one that was like the first like around that time was like when I really started getting into like games coverage and stuff like that, like keeping up to date with all that stuff. And so like hearing that Skyward Sword was coming out, seeing like how soon it was, seeing like all the preview coverage and stuff like that. I was getting super hyped for it. Got it, played it, loved it. At the time I kind of felt like it was like the best Zelda ever. Um Mainly because of the story. I kind of feel like they put a lot more emphasis on story this time around for Zelda compared to like other titles and stuff. The dungeon design I felt like was the best at the time. I really didn't mind the motion control stuff. To me, I kind of felt like it made the game like a lot more immersive because you are Link using the sword, you are using the tools to fight
Yeah.
the enemies. Um, and I never really got like the hate for it at the time. I was just like, well, Skyward Sword I think is like the best one ever. It wasn't until I played Skyward Sword HD where I kind of felt like I kind of like saw some of the cracks in the game. I was like, okay, now I understand some of the complaints. I understand like the backtracking complaints. I understand like the lack of like location variety. You're going back to these three main realms of fire, the forest and the water. Was it the water area? No, the desert area. Um, and all that stuff. Like I kind of get the complaints now. I kind of see them. I still like Skyward Sword, but I kind of feel like if you ask me to replay it again to this day, like I would be like, it's all right. I kind
And
of HD Skyward Sword HD kind of really didn't help like my rose tinted glasses of that game basically. Even though I still enjoyed it. Like Skyward Sword HD is the best way to play that game. It's definitely not as great as I thought it was gonna be,
right.
or as it is.
Um,
Excuse me.
so next fact will be you can visit Link's grave in Final Fantasy. In the original US version of Final Fantasy, you can find Edric, the hero of Dragon Warrior, buried in Elfheim in the original Japanese version. Um, the grave belongs to Link instead. So I guess we
He
didn't
did?
get that version of it. It says re-release of Final Fantasy in the US have since rolled back that change, so you can find Link now in those versions. My history of Skyward Sword, I remember seeing all the reviews and the praise and being excited about it, but I skipped a lot of the Wii stuff. Like Wii was kind of a blind spot for me until I actually got a Wii U. So I went back to play this game in compatibility mode, and that was the first time I played it. And I just remember being extremely frustrated with like the flying system. It really grated on me. I did not like doing the flying in Skyward Sword. I didn't like the backtracking. I thought Link and the character design looks freaking weird. I still to this day kind of don't like that art style for Link or the characters. And it's just a personal thing. It just grated on me. The boss fights, I will say, were cool, very cool. And some of the dungeon mechanics were also really cool. That being said, sometimes it would get frustrating to have to like have the Wiimote not do what you want it to with and because I use the Wii Remote Plus, not like the new Wiimotes, right? And so
Oh
I
yeah,
had the
me
little
too.
attachment
Me
on the
too.
bottom, and it wasn't as accurate as those other ones. And so like sometimes you'd run into weird calibration issues, and part of the gimmicky Nintendo that you love but also hate at the same time.
Yeah, looking back on it, like I don't, I find it kind of weird that they made you needed to have a Wii Motion Plus for that
mm-hmm.
game, and I believe if you only bought the standard edition of that game, you didn't get the attachment.
That's
It was
right.
only like the higher version of the game where you got like the golden Wii remote that had the Motion Plus built in.
Yeah.
Yeah, Motion Plus.
It definitely is kind of weird. Like they didn't even offer like a free Motion Plus or something like that. I don't know. Like
um,
nowadays it kind of feels weird. Like you're locking off like a section of people to play if you don't have a specific peripheral. Normally, if you need that peripheral, it comes bundled with the game.
yeah. Weird decisions, weird Nintendo decisions. we have on the next on the list is Wind Waker HD, which was for the Wii U. This is the best way to play it. I won't tread too much on it. This is how
we talked about Wind Waker really already. Never really got around to this version.
I just know this game as one of the few brighter days of the Wii U's history.
Absolutely. I remember seeing it. Wow, 1080 60 on this. Oh my god. Yeah. It was crazy, and it was the better version for sure. Next on the list is Link Between Worlds. This game is one of my favorite Zelda games. And it's a it's a follow up to A Link to the Past, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
yep,
it carries with that. I would argue it can go toe to toe with that game in terms of quality and in terms of excitement about it. Obviously, it's a shorter game than A Link to the Past. And I played it, I think I played it back to back. Like I beat it and then went back to play it again right afterwards. And this had some of the most unique dungeon designs, I think, of Zelda history, personally. Just with the flat mechanic, like you can walk around and warp around walls and stuff like that. And it really, especially with the 3D, which is funny because like you could turn on the stereoscopic 3D and the 3DS. And when you go 2D, right, and across around, and that effect just worked. The whole gimmick on that worked for me, and I played with 3D as much as I could, as much as my eyeballs would allow. Because obviously you stare at that for a while, it would hurt. But it looked like a little diorama. That was one of the cooler things about the 3DS that you just can't get if you're emulating. So, but yeah, that's my history with that. Love that game. Eric.
Yeah, I didn't get around to this game till like later on in the 3DS's life, I want to say, but definitely is like a really like if you have a 3DS, I think this is like one of the must play games with that system. I like how I now I can't remember. Can you tackle dungeons in any order? Because I know there's like the whole item renting system.
Yes.
Where you can like rent the item and then go to the dungeon that uses that specific item.
Yeah, so you can go to I forget what his name is, who ends up being the hero of ages, right? The one like he's like one of the, I think, is he a past hero? I can't remember what he was.
So we're going real quick. We're going to spoilers for Link Between Worlds.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, in Link Between Worlds, there's like two versions of Hyrule. There's Hyrule and there's like Low Rule.
That's what it was.
And like Low Rule has like its own like Zelda and Link, and so like, I believe you go to Low Rule and you try to help out that version of Zelda who's like called Hilda or something. I think is what it was.
Yeah.
Then somehow I forget what it was, but I think she like betrays you at some point or something like that. And then it turns out that the bunny guy that you're renting items from in Hyrule, he's actually the Low Rule version of Link.
Yeah. It was, I remember being excited about it. Like,
yeah, and so, but yeah, you can like rent the items from him, and then eventually you can like buy the items to keep for good. So a lot of like interesting things that when you think about kind of lead into Breath of the Wild with like tackling things in any order you want. Like it's like interesting kind of looking back at it right now.
Yeah. I think, all right, so Breath of the Wild almost had cattle rustling aliens. Satoru Takizawa, art director for Breath of the Wild, says that some of the Nintendo's younger designers pitched some very unique ideas, such as the giant guardians that chase you down and target you with laser beams. The concept of, so they're the ones to blame. Anyways, the concept of cattle stealing aliens was also pitched, a throwback perhaps to Romani's ranch in Majora's Mask.
Young people got no good ideas these days.
Making games harder on us. Sheesh.